actually I have Helena Krusek from Capital Factory that's going to be here with the panel as she comes on up, her and her panel, to discuss some of the companies here in Capital Factory that have actually taken part of that small business innovation research and seen what that process was look like. So please welcome to the stage, both virtually and in person, here Helena Krusek and her panel. So glad to have you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. All right. Hey, y'all. Thanks for joining us again today. It's been a couple of hours since I've seen a lot of you. So for those of you who might be new or who don't remember my name, again, Helena Krusek. I work here with Capital Factory. And today we're going to be talking with some of the companies from our SBIR Accelerator and folks that have successfully leveraged SBIR and STTR with the Air Force to help their businesses. So I'm going to introduce you now, or rather I'll let everyone have a chance to introduce themselves. David, John, and Jeff with Sensei, Link to Learn, and Aerial Applications. Gentlemen, do you want to each take a couple of minutes to say who you are, what you do with the Air Force, and just let the team get to know you here?
Can we go first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Brooks. I'm Chief Operating Officer of Robotic Services. We have rebranded. We used to be called Aerial Applications.
Ah, yes. You know, this is the problem with working with you. I know the names from beforehand.
And it's the benefit of the Stratify program that you get to, the motion to rebrand.
Yes.
So that felt pretty good. But yeah, we are a GeoInt software company. We're a member of the Capital Factory portfolio. We've been here for about 6 years, and we have around 50 employees in 18 states, and we've scaled largely because of our involvement with military contracting here.
Awesome. Very good.
John Chapman, President of Link to Learn. We're leveraging Directive Phase 2 with our customer base from SOCOM and the Air Force to perpetuate trauma medicine by integrating augmented reality. During this R&D phase, we were fortunate enough to have another opportunity to continue and expand upon our enabling technology through a sequential phase 2 under the STTR program. And we are looking to quantify skills mastery of medical students that are going through our program to enable future command staff to make decisions on the combat readiness of their forces. We are out of Denver, Colorado, a fantastic team covering a wide gamut of industry professionals, and really appreciative of the Capital Factory and the horsepower that they've given us to get integrated into the overall ecosystem.
Excellent.
I'm David. I'm the founder and CEO of Sensei. We're a computational neuroscience startup based here in Austin, essentially focused on building non-invasive ways to measure different types of activity in the brain, but basically using a video camera instead of a giant fMRI. We've done a couple of SBIRs and STTRs, both through AFWorks as well as some other agencies. Our main work with AFWorks right now is through a phase 2 that's now becoming a TACFI. That's basically focused on building a class 2 medical device that can essentially give an objective diagnosis for different types of mental health, conditions, primarily starting with diagnosing PTSD.
Excellent. Very good. So a lot of the folks in the audience and some folks listening from home, I'm assuming, are people who are either interested in government contracting, they haven't really gotten started yet, or they're trying to figure out what's the best way to further open the door once they get their foot in the space. I think all of you sort of have different experiences in getting involved in the dual use space. So could you each say a couple of words about where you got started and how you decided it was the right entry time to go directly into this defense space, or whether or not you started in defense if you had to balance that dual use commercial side of the house? Could each of you say a couple of words about how you got where you are today?
Sure. Yeah. I have to take this one to start. We started out as a commercial company doing disaster response. What we started with that, our first project really was our first big one was with Comcast. Was out doing wide area mapping post disaster to help them prioritize repairs. And what we realized when we were out in the field as data collectors was that there were bottlenecks on the processing for us to be able to get that data back and analyze it quickly for our customers. And so what we started doing was processing the data ourselves in-house, and that became the big path forward for our company from there. We specialized in doing 2D to 3D modeling a process called photogrammetry, which is just one slice of the GeoInt value proposition for our clients. When we got involved with Capital Factory and y'all started doing more work with the defense, we got in on a phase one. And it was a relatively light proof of concept. And we went from there to an expanded phase two with that same customer. And then we went to a strategic finance increase with StratFi based on the promise of that program. We have experience at each one of those levels. I think that's the anticipated workflow as you kind of work your way up. You can do the direct to phase two if you're a bigger company. It has been a bit of an interesting challenge for us to manage the different requirements you have on government software versus and the security requirements around that versus commercial software. But yeah, that's kind of how we got started and how we expanded.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and it's been really cool to see your rise as you built this company. So very excited to have you here talking about this today. John, what about you?
The vast majority of my team has a veteran background in some capacity, and since we're in medical trauma training, we've all seen the positive and negatives that happen downrange and why we need good medics. And this is, translates to frontline personnel that are on the streets as well. So the foundation of our company is built off of mobile cadaveric training. So we actually can go to all these different places and train frontline personnel directly. That gave us the opportunity to see a capability gap or requirement for a standardization of training, which allowed us to kind of ideate and come up with a plan of how can we take, combat medicine, take that esoteric knowledge of all these trained professionals with all this tenure and push that on to students. And so that's where we, put in for a phase one. Ultimately, during that particular cycle was a direct to phase two, and we were fortunate enough to get a direct to phase two, and has pushed us into this, technology rapid building. But it is really, really based off of just listening to what is going on with the troops, understanding their pain points, understanding where future monies are being allocated, and really just kind of pulling on those different strings to make sure that you are a good fit. There's 1,000 good ideas. But if there's not a requirement, there's not a capability gap, but there's no funding behind it, you're kind of going down a wrong path. So we've just tried to make sure that our shot group is really tight when it comes to how we're engaging with the DoD.
Yeah, no, and that's a really good point, and I definitely want to come back to that. So if I forget, remind me gently because I want to pull on that thread a little bit more. But David, I also want to hear about your experience. So I can set the context a little bit. When we first started CDI, this was really back in 2018, and we were just trying to figure out what would stick, right? How many companies we could help win government contracts and see what happened. Your company is one of those early use cases where we were able to leverage that serendipity to help get you in front of the right people, right?
Absolutely.
And so was that the experience that helped get you into your first government contract, or where did that land?
Yeah. So if we take a step before that, the first time that we worked with the Air Force was before AFWorks even existed. So it was through the Pilot Training Next initiative, which was a program that was run here in Austin. And that was kind of like that program and the Air Force coming to Austin for that is kind of what led to the establishment, the establishment of AFWorks in many ways. So that was kind of our first entry into the Air Force. And the Air Force is actually our first customer, because we kind of did what they tell every startup not to do, which was we started just kind of trying to build the technology, not with the customer or a product in mind. And we figured we'll figure out, there's at least 5 years of R&D work here. So we have 5 years to figure out who's actually going to buy this and use it. So that was kind of our initial entry. But the way that we've kind of used the AFWorks SBIR process, over the past couple of years, we've done 2 phase 2s, and we've put in for about 8 phase 1s that are going to phase 2s. The very unique part about the AFWorks SBIR process is that they're all open topics. So to my knowledge, no other agency has this open topic. And so the way that we've been able to leverage it is we've been able to talk to a lot of folks in the military that want to use our product but don't have their own cash. And we basically are utilizing the SBIR process as the way to get R&D dollars for us doing those types of projects with them. So like if we talk to a unit that kind of wants to test our technology, but that doesn't have the money for a pilot, we'll basically propose that as a phase 1. And even though it's a phase 1, we have the backing, of a customer in the Air Force. So that type of letter of recommendation for them kind of helps us put us over the line. And then, so that's our phase one. We get about $60,000 for that. And then the phase two is basically about, $750,000. And because these are open topics, like there's no set thing. So the only real requirement is that you find someone in the Air Force who wants to use your tech. So we kind of use the SBIR as like our personal pot of R&D money. And we kind of approach customers in the Air Force as like, hey, if you want to use our tech, it doesn't matter. You don't have your own R&D funds. We'll apply for a SBIR together. We'll go from there. And I think traditionally, AFWorks does 4 cycles a year, and there's really no limit on how many you can apply for. That's kind of how we've leveraged it.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a really important thing to kind of underline for other companies, right? Is if you get into government contracting, I feel like my experience has been you're constantly looking for the contract vehicles that get you in and get the project you're looking for paid for. And part of getting those bigger ones is having the performant work experience with the customer who's got the problem at hand, so they can give you that letter of recommendation or letter of interest when you go to put that, and you have that work experience when you go to make that next application. So leveraging the SBIRs in that way, I think is a really powerful use of the tool. I think it's the intention of them as you go to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a strategy that not all people see as the path forward. I definitely know people who have, been really discouraged. They've applied for one and they sort of let go and they're like, that's it. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
You sort of have to remind people that there's a long game to this.
Yeah.
It definitely makes sense.
And it comes up, I think, when we've done after action reports for ones that we've gone for and not gotten. As a small company, you often get dinged for not having the performant work experience. So if you can make getting the cash really easy, you make that next level really, you give yourself a lot of flavors down the road.
But a big thing to also know about that is it is an adaptation of your technology to meet the needs of the DoD or the Air Force. So it's
correct.
just using a pilot so they can try your solution. You'll ultimately get disqualified. There needs to be an adaptation or modification per language to meet their need.
Yeah, it can't be substantially similar tech, right? Yeah,
it's got to be something innovative.
It's got to be something new. Yeah.
Yep. We have a lot of companies that come to me saying, I don't understand why we didn't win this. And I say, do you have something new?
Yeah.
Do you have something you need to iterate on, or did you just provide something commercial off the shelf? So
And also on that point, if you don't get an SBIR, and this goes regardless of the agencies, if you write to them, they'll send you an after action report, and it's literally their internal justification file as to why you were denied. And so you'll get very blunt feedback as to why you didn't get it. And that basically just becomes your checklist of what to fix in the proposal when you resubmit it the next cycle. And the fact that AFWorks does, I think, every once in a while they will skip a cycle, but the fact that there are so many cycles a year, just take the same application, fix it, and resubmit it. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, iteration. Well, that's great. So I want to take a second to go back to that topic that we brought up earlier. We touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to dig on it a little bit more. Do you have any advice or words of wisdom for folks when it comes to communicating with your customers, right? Because you obviously need to have an MOU signed. You need to have someone that's willing to buy the thing if you're going to win a phase 2. Do you have any suggestions or words of advice for what's the best way to stay in communication with those people and make sure that you're on top of what their needs are?
Personal opinion from being a veteran and industry, understanding that they have their mission set. Their communication channels are going to be a little bit delayed. We in the industry side want to move so fast. We're expecting, immediate gratification, but there's a lot of bureaucracy that you have to just be sympathetic towards your military customer. And so if you give them a little bit of leniency and do not come at them as, emails and phone calls and why haven't you responded, and give them that courtesy, understanding that they have, strategic missions ahead of innovation sometimes, it paid dividends for us of just, acknowledging that and not getting over sensitive about maybe a week goes by, they don't properly respond, and just, a subtle nudge here and there just to get it back to the top of their inbox. But, just custom and courtesies goes a long way.
Yeah, persistent but polite. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure, but polite.
But polite, yes.
Yeah,
Everyone's having a hard
friendly.
day.
Yeah, I feel like you always give your customers the experience you would want to have, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And I think that to this point, like understanding the system that you're in, also knowing to do your homework ahead of time, right? What the innovation tracks that these different agencies are trying to put forward, their key themes, they're not secrets. Like they release them all the time. They talk about them all the time. You should go do some deep research on that. That's not your client's job to do for you. it will make the conversation you have with your client that much easier, and you'll be able to walk in and say, okay, I can connect this capability to this, key capability that the agency overall is looking to do. And I think it's really behooves the company who's trying to close the business that they do that work, ahead of time for their client. And then I think if we're presuming you're trying to do communications in line with a phase 2, build the growth and the communication cadence that you're looking for, that is responsible for project management and project growth, into the project that you're setting up. You have a lot of say as you're writing the proposal, right? With how you're going to handle project management. It's a big idea for small companies. It's not necessarily the thing you think to lean into when you're putting together a capability statement or something along those lines for a client. But how you manage the project and how you get business done is going to be material to them. And so you can build in those, the touch points here, and here that make a lot of sense.
One of the success we've had is trying to find a point of contact that has a non-deployable billet. Military has a rotation that's constantly evolving. They might get punched to Oconus or wherever that might take them. So you'll be in the middle of a project, and then your point of contact is now he's in Eastern Europe, wherever he or she may have got deployed. So seeking out a non-deployable billet, whether it's a test and evaluation squadron or some sort of innovation cell, and push that is your umbilical cord to the unit has been really successful for us.
Yeah, that's a really good point. David, do you want anything you want to add to that?
I think everything they touched on was great. I think I have much to add to that.
No, great. Just wanted to give you a chance if you wanted it. So I know we have a limited amount of time, and this is going by so fast. So I'll ask one more question and then open it up to the audience to see if they have anything to find out about. But one thing I did want to mention and highlight is that Link to Learn is that you do have sitter experience.
Correct.
Can you speak to that experience a little bit? Because I think some folks are, they see the requirements for sitter and they think, I don't have a university partner. I don't feel comfortable splitting this. Can you speak a little bit to that experience? And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have, from phase 1 to direct to phase 2 under SBIRs, and then we have phase 1 onto a phase 2 under a STTR program. So this last one, we were awarded a phase 1 SBIR and a phase 1 sitter at the same time, and we had to pick. And so we did a really deep analysis of which track we wanted to go down, because we could only have one at the same time, which we didn't know, but is what it is. So we went back and forth. One of the big things that led me towards the STTRs, STTR has less dollars that they're given to distribute, just based off of the participation volume that's in that track. But we started looking at how many proposals are in the SBIR arena versus how many are in the STTR. And just from a competitive analysis, there are far less companies that are going down the STTR track, but the STTR track has less money. So you have to kind of rationalize which one has a better odds in your favor. And we felt that the STTR was. But one of the big things is we already had a working relationship with our university partner. We do a lot of mentoring on our team. We have different faculty members that come in and work as adjunct professors. So all of our communication channels, all of our different modalities of how we work with that university were already in place. And that took about 8 months just to iron that out, because it is a very different beast working with them. So it gave us the confidence to go forth and do it. Now, where an STTR, any type of contract, you delay, and then your contract starts. And it's, if you wait till then to start forming those communication channels with the university partner, you could lose 3 months, just getting that rolling. And now your performance period is 9 months. So if you do go the STTR track, very much get all your communication, all your paperwork, all your IP assignments, all those things in place prior to moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Man, that raises another question I want to get to, but I want to give the audience a chance to ask questions because I feel like there's going to be some good ones. So I'll ask the audience here and also online. If you have any questions, please add them into the chat. But does anyone here have questions before I move on my own? Sure, go ahead. Sorry, 1 second. It's going to bring you a mic so they can hear you online.
Great. First, thank you very much to the panelists. Appreciate you sharing your experiences. My question's actually for Helena. What could the different branches of the military learn from one another when it comes to contracting and acquisitions?
That's a really good question. So I work a lot with the Air Force, right? And doing the SBIR Accelerator, I've gotten a lot of experience learning how the Air Force does their contracting. But each of the different departments does it differently, right? And y'all have different, I think you've got different awards with different components, right? Could you speak to that a little bit? I know that there's some Army money. Is there Navy money as well in here?
Yeah, so we've worked with Army, Navy, but also just kind of we work with Army, Navy, Department of Energy, and NSF. Basically, everyone but the Air Force follows the typical way of doing SBIRs. So, and there's kind of two main differences. So, whereas the Air Force has kind of open topics, so it's whatever you want to do. You can basically say, I want to do this. They have extremely specific things they want to look for. So, like the Department of Energy one that we did was like, we're looking for folks who are working on machine learning that can integrate this, this very specific library that we as the Department of Energy have built. I think the last round of Army Application Lab ones, it was focused on, there's a specific type of some sort of missile launch technology that we want. So they're extremely specific, and also the application is very different. So on the Air Force side, it's like build a 15-page slide deck for a phase 1, and for a phase 2, it's like a 15-page white paper. Every other agency has like a standard template, and it's kind of the same NSF-based template for all of them, where it's a lot more work. So you're talking 45, 50 pages for a phase 1, closer to 100 pages for a phase 2, but you're also talking different dollar amounts. So both on the Army and the NSF side, on a phase 1, you're talking 250. And on a phase 2, you're talking up to like 2.5, 2.7 million. So they're very different. And so I think if you go Air Force or you go other route, it's just a matter of like, is there a specific topic that you qualify for that you want to go for? If so, great. If not, then you're kind of forced to go the Air Force route. But I think, we've done a lot of work with all the different agencies, and AFWorks is definitely the easiest to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really great point. Do you all have anything you want to add to that?
We were unique that there's one joint open topic SBIR that had Army, Navy, Air Force that participated. It was a good idea. The good idea fairy came, and I think that it was very hard for all the agencies to collaborate. We actually got a phase 2 out of that, so we have a great cross section of Navy, Air Force, and Army spread across the country. That performance period is about to start, so we're going to learn real time how that joint agency communication is actually going to come to fruition. But that's my only experience.
Great. So we'll talk to you about that at the next Fed Supernova. Ask you how that went.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Anything you want to add, Jeff?
On the contracting side, I don't think so. I think that David covered it pretty well. That they've got some different flavors. You want to go look at those flavors, see which ones match up best for your business. You probably want to take some of the into account your likelihood of winning and that sort of thing, those sorts of stuff, right? When you're picking out the contract you're going for. As we've actually gone through our process, I do think that there's an opportunity on some major ideas like shared systems across different DoD agencies call it, where anchoring some standards, like a unique set of standards that works across all, that makes the data more interoperable, would be a really, really, really good idea. I think that we'll get a lot more innovation on shared standards that will work for more people, so that you don't have to worry about doing custom and implementation and configuration of something I've already taken off the shelf and modified for a single DoD customer. And it reduces the dev burden on already pretty strapped startups. So I think that, to anchor that to an example that works for me, because I work in GeoInt, the Air Force is adopting the SIDS-V standards for classifying different features out in a map, right? If those same standards apply to more than the Air Force and they apply to all the different agencies we're walking into, it makes the AI modules I build that pull down SIDS-V standard data a lot easier for them to rinse and reuse. So I think there's a real opportunity there at a higher level of collaboration among the agencies.
One saved round. So one of the kind of moving target definitions is a technical point of contact, or a TPOC for a contract. There are joint agency initiatives where you have different embedded elements within the Air Force. So if you start looking at these different agencies that have Army, Navy, Marine Corps, whoever underneath Air Force, or Air Force is supporting as an augmentee to another entity, is also a good touch point to get involved in cross collaboration of sharing that technology. If you can find those joint or interoperability units, where I was talking about with the TPOC, for a first couple cycles, the technical point of contact for your contract could be another agency or another service member from Army or Navy. Currently, I believe a TPOC has to be Air Force, but that definition has slid kind of left and right. So if you are looking for those joint agencies, just make sure to find out what the definition of TPOC is for that particular contract cycle.
Great advice.
Awesome. We have time for one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's one more hand.
Can you guys, those of you who have gotten a StratFi or TACFi, just touch real quick on some of the unique hurdles you had to overcome or challenges that you didn't see coming when going for those bigger pots of money?
So I
That's
think
mostly you.
I think
Yeah.
that's me. Okay. Yeah. So we were part of the first class for StratFi, and the real difficulty there was that the way that you pulled in the matching funds for StratFi was not clearly defined really for back then. I think the implication was that you would go out and you would pull in outside, VC money, which we ended up doing. But when we first put our StratFi together, you had to show how you were going to get that money elsewhere, and we were originally planning on doing it through our commercial sales and matching revenue. But we ended up de-risking the contract by pulling in the VC. The issue that we had back then, because a lot of VCs who were in the SaaS space, one, I'm a military, SaaS company, so it's like, okay, well, how do we want to work with that? That's already a subset of VCs. And then this idea of, who's the first mover when it comes to, okay, I'll give you a contract for cash if you make sure that you can get this contract. You know what I mean? It's like this kind of back and forth on that side that was a bit to navigate. One of the things that was really helpful, I think, for ours was that we went in with the backing of a long-term partner we've been working with in Verizon. That was helpful, and we used the two opportunities, on the commercial and on the government side to kind of get buy-in from both of the Air Force and that big customer on the commercial side. I think that's a real opportunity for companies who find themselves in that position. But that matching, the matching funds are going to be the big one you have to get, and it's non-trivial.
Yeah, great. So we've got less than 2 minutes left, so I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to say some parting words of wisdom, but I'll give you a little tiny prompt. What's one piece of advice you would give to the startups in the audience as they're thinking about going down the SBIR journey, if you would give to the audience here?
So my advice would be to plug into the communities you have access to that do this work. If you're here at Capital Factory, there are venues here where we can actually help you in a really specific way for your team. We have a program that we run called the ATX GovCon Working Group. It's not just for Austin. And if you've got questions on how to fill out these forms, what's the strategy I should take on these different contracts, we'll help you there. And we're not the only group that does this sort of thing around town. And if you're around the country, there are for sure ecosystems in your area that do the same thing. You should really lean in. That would be my advice.
Read instructions. It is simple. It is simple
Underrated.
as that. It's, you have contracting officers or KOs that have a stack of papers and they have to get through it. The moment they see an error or if it doesn't match up, disqualified, boom. You could have the greatest technology in the world, but you have to give them credit that they have a mountain to go through. So if you don't dot your I's and cross your T's, you just gave them a reason to put you in the reject pile.
Great advice.
Mine was going to be exactly that. So yeah.
Sorry, man.
No, you're good. So the way we do it is on the AppWorks side, like there is a template that they give that has all the prompts in it, and then it has room for you to write. And it's already in the right font size. It's already the right page limit, all of that. And so that's what we like. Don't worry about making it look nice and pretty and all this stuff. Just download the template and just fill it out line for line. And things will be repetitive and so on and so forth. But if you just fill out the template, you've hit every single requirement.
Awesome. So read.
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk, but be persistent. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. And with that, I think we're right on time. So we're going to wrap. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you to our panelists. Phenomenal job. Thank you so much.